Is there any verifiable scientific evidence to substantiate the possibility of existence after we die? The prevailing scientific consensus generally posits that the concept of an afterlife is little more than wishful thinking. However, in this discussion, I will outline 7 distinct, fact-based arguments suggesting that consciousness does, in fact, persist beyond the demise of the physical body. To begin, consider a compelling story recently featured in the New York Times. A man named Robert Bigelow, a billionaire entrepreneur and the CEO of Bigelow Aerospace, initiated an essay competition with a total prize pool of $1.5 million. The challenge was for entrants to present the most persuasive scientific evidence for an afterlife. I must commend Mr. Bigelow for this initiative. It is a truly remarkable endeavor, and I eagerly anticipate the insights that will emerge from it. The kind of evidence that might be brought into the public could be paradigm-shifting. This contest illustrates that brilliant minds across the globe are seriously investigating the scientific support for the survival of consciousness beyond the physical form. With that established, let us proceed. I am communicating with you today from the vibrant landscape of Jamaica, where I have been residing and working as a facilitator at a legal psychedelic retreat center. You can find out more about my one-on-one work at innervisionpsychedelics.com. As I will touch upon later, I am entirely convinced that psychedelics serve as exceptionally potent instruments for exploring this very question of the afterlife. Let's begin with the first and largest body of scientific research that bolsters the idea of continued existence: near-death experiences. The investigation into this phenomenon clearly indicates that consciousness operates even after the brain has ceased all activity, a subject I have covered extensively in prior works. For our current purpose, a general summary will suffice. Over 60 years of dedicated scientific inquiry into near-death experiences have catalogued thousands of such cases, revealing that these events are remarkably widespread. Studies suggest that somewhere between 200 to 300 million individuals globally have undergone a near-death experience, a truly staggering figure. If even a single one of these accounts held a deeper truth, that alone would fundamentally alter our comprehension of life and death. While no two experiences are identical, research has uncovered striking consistencies in their core characteristics across cultures worldwide. These include a profound sensation of detaching from the physical body, a journey through a tunnel or portal, and arrival in a form of afterlife realm that feels more vivid and real than our earthly existence. The most extensive study conducted to date on these experiences involved a survey of over 2,000 individuals who had suffered cardiac arrest. It discovered that an astonishing 40% of them reported a state of awareness during a period when their heart had stopped and they were, by all medical standards, completely unconscious. Some of these accounts are so extraordinary that they defy any conventional explanation. Consider, for instance, a study on near-death experiences among individuals who are blind. This research found that 80% of blind participants who had an NDE suddenly found themselves able to see, providing accurate descriptions of visual details in the room surrounding their inert bodies. How is such a thing possible? The most compelling NDEs are those that include what are known as veridical perceptions, where the individual acquires verifiable information that could not have been obtained through any ordinary sensory means. In some cases, for example, people having NDEs can accurately describe an object on the roof of the hospital or a private conversation their relatives were having in a distant room, all while they were clinically dead or unconscious. There are countless books on this topic, dating back to the foundational work of Dr. Raymond Moody, but in his book Evidence of the Afterlife, Dr. Jeffrey Long meticulously lays out 9 distinct lines of evidence asserting that NDEs are definitive proof of an afterlife. There is absolutely no medical theory, not even a speculative one, that can account for someone in cardiac arrest, under general anesthesia, having such incredibly detailed, lucid, and dramatic near-death experiences. The second line of evidence for an afterlife stems from research into DMT, or dimethyltryptamine, often referred to as the spirit molecule. DMT is among the most potent psychedelics known, and I have dedicated much discussion to it because I genuinely believe it holds a key to unlocking new revelations about the nature of consciousness and life itself. Scientific studies have shown that the DMT experience bears a close resemblance to the near-death experience, which is a fascinating correlation. Much like in NDEs, users of DMT subjectively report separating from their physical form, traversing a type of tunnel or portal, and ultimately emerging into a transcendent realm or dimension of existence that lies beyond our physical universe. The research led by Dr. Rick Strassman, whom I recently had the pleasure of interviewing, has revealed that over 50% of DMT experiences involve these journeys to unseen worlds or alternate dimensions. Does this consistency between the DMT state and the near-death experience offer additional evidence for an afterlife? In my opinion, it absolutely does. Between these two distinct datasets, we have millions of individuals reporting a congruent message, that consciousness exists beyond this physical lifetime. At a certain point, it becomes illogical and frankly absurd to claim that all these millions of people are somehow hallucinating the exact same intricate visions and experiences. A third line of evidence is found in the research concerning past life recall, or reincarnation. You may find it surprising that a substantial body of academic research on reincarnation exists. At the University of Virginia, the Division of Perceptual Studies was established in 1967 with the specific purpose of investigating this very phenomenon. The pioneering work of researchers like Ian Stevenson, Bruce Grayson, and Jim Tucker has documented thousands of cases involving young children from all corners of the globe who, from the moment they could talk, reported vivid memories of previous lifetimes. What makes this so astonishing is that in a great number of these cases, the child can recall specific, verifiable details, including their former names, the names of their family members, the geographical location of their past life, the manner of their death, and even family secrets that no one outside the family could possibly know. These details can subsequently be independently investigated and confirmed to match an actual person who lived and died. A prime example is the case of a young boy named James Leininger, who from the age of 2, remembered with striking clarity a past life as a World War II Navy pilot who was shot down and killed over the Pacific Ocean. James possessed precise knowledge about World War II aircraft, as well as the names of his friends and co-pilots, information he could not have acquired through any conventional means. How can we possibly explain this phenomenon of small children describing obscure and specific details from another person's life, often before they can even read? Where are they sourcing this information? It is incredible to consider that thousands of such documented cases exist worldwide, supported by a vast volume of books and research, and the cumulative weight of this evidence is exceptionally compelling. The fourth line of evidence is derived from research into remote viewing, extrasensory perception, ESP, and parapsychology, all of which fundamentally challenge our conventional understanding of consciousness. The true history of remote viewing includes a top-secret CIA research program known as Project Stargate, which for over 20 years investigated psychic abilities and ESP. The fact that the CIA invested $20 million to fund this program year after year strongly suggests it was yielding intriguing results. Remote viewing is a mental technique used to focus on a blind target, one unknown to the viewer, and perceive accurate information about it, regardless of its distance in space or time. For instance, at one point, the renowned remote viewer Ingo Swann used this ability to accurately describe rings around the planet Jupiter long before mainstream science knew they existed. What we are discussing here are, in essence, psychic abilities. While that term might sound preposterous from a strictly scientific viewpoint, Project Stargate was very real, as was the data it produced. Over its 2-decade lifespan, Project Stargate generated sufficient scientific research to provide undeniable statistical evidence that this is a genuine human ability that cannot be dismissed as mere chance or coincidence. Even before this project, researcher J.B. Rain at Duke University was studying psychic abilities and founded the entire discipline of parapsychology. How does this all connect to the idea of an afterlife? Well, if psychic abilities are real, and I am absolutely convinced that, to some degree they are, it presents an incredibly difficult challenge to the materialist model of consciousness, which holds that awareness is merely a product of the brain. The research into remote viewing strongly suggests that consciousness is somehow unbound by the physical body and is part of something much, much larger. A fifth line of evidence emerges from the fields of quantum physics and research into non-local consciousness. Since the advent of quantum physics over a century ago, pioneered by figures like Niels Bohr and Max Planck, the scientific community has been compelled to rethink the nature of consciousness and its relationship to the material world. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrated that the simple act of conscious observation or measurement directly alters the outcome of a quantum experiment. This observer effect seems to imply that consciousness is not a passive bystander, but is fundamentally entangled in the creation of the material universe we perceive. A growing number of quantum physicists are now endorsing the view that consciousness is not produced by the physical brain at all. Rather, it is as fundamental to nature as space, time, energy, or mass. Max Planck, the father of quantum mechanics, once famously stated, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." This concept, that consciousness is fundamental to the fabric of reality, is described by the term non-local consciousness. It suggests that consciousness is not located within the confines of space and time, but exists beyond this universe altogether. As more evidence accumulates in support of non-local consciousness, it will force the scientific establishment to reconsider its entire framework regarding the soul, spirit, and the afterlife. Apply that wisdom to live this present life with greater peace and love, and to leave the world a better place than we found it. Thank you for joining me in this exploration, and I look forward to our next discussion. The sixth line of evidence comes from UFOs and UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, which again challenge the paradigm of scientific materialism. In just the last few years, we have seen multiple UFO videos declassified and released by the US government, accompanied by multiple confirmations from the Department of Defense that these objects are real and are being actively studied. This might sound counterintuitive. What could extraterrestrial visitors possibly have to do with the afterlife? But bear with me. I believe there is extremely compelling evidence to suggest that whatever these strange sightings represent, they cannot be simply explained as physical objects from other planets. They are something far stranger and more mysterious than anything we have even begun to comprehend. In fact, I believe this UFO phenomenon is more likely interdimensional in nature. This means that whatever is behind it doesn't just originate from other planets, but from other planes of existence, other dimensions beyond our physical universe. The work of Jacques Vallée, who has studied UFO encounters for decades, makes an incredibly convincing case that a deeper understanding of UFOs requires us to think beyond the simplistic extraterrestrial hypothesis. Not only do UFOs defy gravity by some unknown method, but they also appear to be intricately connected to consciousness itself. This is a great mystery, but in numerous UFO cases, witnesses report phenomena such as time dilation, where time seems to slow down or speed up, and receiving telepathic messages directly from the objects. Furthermore, there are strange parallels between UFO encounters and DMT experiences. I will also mention that UFOs are linked to what is known as high strangeness, paranormal phenomena most famously documented at Skinwalker Ranch. Interestingly enough, Skinwalker Ranch was purchased by none other than Robert Bigelow, who assembled an entire scientific team to research these instances of high strangeness. UFOs can be viewed as evidence of alternate dimensions and non-physical realities, which in turn makes the idea of an afterlife seem much more plausible. The final line of evidence for the afterlife is drawn from mysticism, shamanism, and what is known as the perennial philosophy. While mysticism and shamanism are distinct traditions deserving of their own independent consideration, for the purpose of this discussion, they both represent a direct encounter with spiritual realities or a higher power. What is remarkable is that despite vast cultural, social, and religious differences, mystics and shamans from all over the world describe these spiritual realities in fundamentally similar ways. As the mystic Meister Eckhart once said, "Theologians may quarrel, but the mystics of the world speak the same language." All of the great mystics and awakened beings, from Buddha to Jesus, share fundamentally the same core message, that at the very center of our being resides a spirit or an infinite eternal essence that continues on after this lifetime and is an expression of the highest divine reality. The celebrated author Aldous Huxley termed this unifying concept the perennial philosophy, noting that the same core truths can be found at the heart of all the world's major religions and spiritual traditions. Modern science would have us seriously believe that all of the mystical and shamanic spiritual experiences throughout all of human history are simply explained away as hallucinations generated by the brain. Is that truly a rational position? That all of these wise elders and spiritual masters were hallucinating, and somehow coincidentally, hallucinating the exact same experiences and sharing the same essential teachings? That explanation strains credulity. A much more logical and feasible explanation is that these mystics and shamans are tapping into genuine spiritual aspects of reality that exist in a way we do not yet fully understand. It is also worth noting that modern psychedelic research has demonstrated that substances like psilocybin or DMT can consistently induce mystical-type experiences, providing an incredible opportunity for scientifically studying these non-ordinary states of consciousness. I am convinced that over the coming years, psychedelic research will introduce more and more evidence for the afterlife through these profound spiritual experiences. So there we have it, 7 distinct lines of evidence that support the reality of an afterlife. It goes without saying that I am personally and absolutely convinced that every single one of us is an infinite spiritual being having a temporary human experience. But I am eager to hear your own thoughts. Do you find this collection of evidence compelling? In your opinion, what is the most convincing proof of life after death? And here is another question to ponder. If the afterlife is indeed real, what do we do with that knowledge? How do we